All right, we're live. All right, I'm not a number, I'm a free man. Hey everyone, it's freezing all over the place. It's not so freezing here in Phoenix. I'm Jack Mangan, rocking the Black Sabbath t-shirt. You know me from the Am I Evil graphic novel, which is picking up steam again. It's going places. Also MetalAsylum.net, and right here at the Metal Hall of Fame. And to my, see, I got my directions now. To my left,
got it down,
right?
We're pros. Rich Catino from the Metal Asylum and Brave Words, and also the Metal Hall of Fame and Sea of Tranquility. And tonight we are joined by, things just got heavier.
Oh, yes.
We're joined by, who are we with?
You are joined by Metal Mike and the keeper of all things heavy on the internet, at least when I'm on it.
Give us the pronunciation of the last name so everybody gets it straight. What is it?
So originally my last name in Polish it's called Chlasciak, but it's a lot of like soft C's and stuff like that. So I just say It's two words. It's like the word like a school, like class, and the letter Chuck, Chlasciak, and that seems to work out pretty good. It's close enough. It's all good.
All right, there you go, everybody. So get his name straight.
Right.
All right, that's the most important question of the night, I think. Yeah.
Right?
That's right.
How's it going, Mike? How's it going? What's happening? You got that new album coming out, right?
Yeah. So, actually, I have it. Look, I'm prepared.
Cool. Show everybody.
It's the Metal Squire, and we just got it back from duplication. And it's just one of those like crazy projects that I wanted to do for a long time, but I just never felt right about it. The timing wasn't right, and obviously with 2020, all you got this time. So I put this together. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. You know, I could tell you guys more about that.
Yeah, give us a little backstory to it. What is it? What's it about? What's on it? What's the time frame? What era of your career does it come from?
Well, it's a very, very early time. This is pre-Metal Mike, almost. So, you know, I always said, like, in my career, it's always been really interesting because I've had friends who started playing instruments when they were like 7, 8, and 9, and I didn't start playing till I was 13. So I always felt like I started late. But to my advantage, all my friends were always much better than me because they played longer. So I was always surrounded with better guitar players and drummers, and I was always the worst kid on the block. But I would practice them all, and I would record demos, and eventually try to get my music out somewhere. And I don't know what the hell I was doing. I was just sending it to. I would make demos of my playing, and I would copy tapes, and I would run around. I used to live in Bayonne, New Jersey. I would run around Bayonne. I would put them in stores, and I would tell all my friends that my new tape is in stores to go and buy it because I like the feeling of somebody actually going and buying something I recorded as a musician. So this is me being like 15 and a half, 16 and a half. So he was late in the game, and I would make all these demos. So I would literally, it sounds like a cliche, but I would literally save lunch money, and I would buy guitar pedals, or I would go to like a local studio, book time, and I would compose these classical guitar pieces or have a drum machine and metal beats, and I would always record it. Always recording, because I learned that one thing to really get better on an instrument is if you can hear yourself play. It's kind of like looking in the mirror. You know, you know your faults or what you could improve, whatever. So no one has to tell you. So I'm like, well, how can you get better? You just record and listen to yourself play. So it was quite a cool time. So I would record all these tunes and so I have tapes, I have DAT tapes, I have cassette tapes in my storage. And I was just like, but if I release my stuff that's early, then obviously it's not as good as something that I could do now, then I felt, am I stepping back and kind of showing this work in progress as when I was 16, 17 years old. But then I was just like, and do I really want to put my name, Metal Mike, on it? Because what about if you guys don't know the story behind it, listen to the song and you're like, well, it's pretty good, but I thought Metal Mike was better. You know, it was one of those things. I kept going back and wrestling with it. And then I was just like, what the hell? Like, if, you know, I'm not going to do iTunes. I'm not going to do Spotify, none of that. I'm just going to print 100 CDs and get them out to the people who follow my playing the closest. You know? And then interestingly enough, because it came from like a true place, like these CDs were almost sold, you know? So it was really nice. It's just somebody who can just basically go back in time when I was 16, 17 and listen to 12 of my original songs.
So nothing's been re-recorded or cleaned up or anything? It's just taken straight from your old tapes?
It's taking, the recordings themselves are taken from the tapes, but everything went into, basically we remastered everything and cleaned things up. So there's no crazy tape hiss, so there's no warbling, you know, it's not, it's not putting cassette tapes on the CD and trying to sell it to somebody. It's not about that. Right. I mean, this CD is like, you know, a true love of it's labor of love, because there's, you know, it's not so much for the money. It's like sort of like this far. It sounds actually even weird talking about it, but this far into my career, I'm almost looking as a legacy of the whole thing, you know. So I'm going to write new music and keep releasing, but wouldn't it be nice if one day somebody could just pick up something from the beginning and have the whole thing, you know?
Right.
And
what's the timeline from these songs? What's your years that these come from?
So I would say these years come from between like 89 to like 92. Okay. So the hotbed of guitar heroes, you know?
Yeah.
This is where it was all happening. So I would listen to these guys, Jason Becker and Steve Vai, all these guys. And then I would also, because of Randy Rhoads, I would study classical guitar and I would write classical guitar compositions. So there's 50-50. So half of it's actually classical guitar, all original, and then I would have other tracks on it that are, you know, my old recordings. And then I have I have 4 songs, 2 guitar solos, and 2 songs and demo stages from 2001. These are the songs that never really broke through the gates for the Crucible record from Halford, and I just had these demos, and I said, well, how cool would it be to see this little stamp of where my head was at back then.
Right.
Very cool.
I see we got a little message there from Fun Erika. What's up, Erika?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the house.
Yeah, the comments are blowing up. Yeah, if you guys have questions for Metal Mike, yeah, by all means, fire away. But yeah, I was going to say, it sounds like...
Just a quick little story. Hold on, Jack. A little quick story with Erika. Mike, remember the studio? We went to go hang out in the studio with, oh my God, where were we?
Was it WDHA?
Yes, with Matt, right? And Erika and you and me and Jack Frost, I think. The 5 of us were there.
Matt, the metal director, as we call him.
Yes.
It was a good time.
And you, Jack, and Erika, and somebody was pushed down the hallway in a shopping cart or something, I think. It's pretty fun.
That sounds just about right with those days.
Good times.
Yeah. DHA, the Metal Mania, I would go and visit Matt a lot when he was doing that on Friday nights, just hang out, play music. It was quite fun. They said, you're here so often, we're going to have to put you on the payroll. But I love metal. You know, what else am I going to do on Friday night?
Yeah, we all did. That's why we all went up there and hung out. It was cool. All right, so go ahead, Jack. Sorry, I stepped on your question there.
No worries, no worries. I mean, no, this is what it's all about. These stories. I was gonna say, I assume, did you record them all at the same places in Jersey, or do you go to a couple of different studios? Like you said, you got the DAT tapes.
Yeah. So this is from all different places. A lot of the stuff was actually done in my dorm room while I was attending Berkeley. So that was the weird thing about me in Berkeley, is that I always knew I wanted to play metal, so I would get all my jazz and arrangement homework done and over with, and I would just go and practice guitar and record demos. And I would send my demos out to Guitar Player magazine and Guitar World and try to get into these hot talent guitarist columns that they had. And those guys would be like, no, you're playing too many notes, you have to slow down. All right, so I'd do another demo. And I did like 8 demos, and I would keep mailing it to Guitar Player. And I just kept sending it, and it just kind of kept building up. I don't know what I was doing, but I figured eventually, one of these tapes is going to end up in the right hands.
Yeah.
It did, but...
Was that all jazz? Did you have like some jazz stuff on there too, or is it all pretty much straightforward metal?
Oh, there's no jazz. No. It's funny because when I was at Berkeley, I got really proficient at taking like Charlie Parker or bebop chord progressions, and I could analyze it, and I could tell you which scales go over each chord. I could analyze the progressions key wise, so I could do this really quick. Yeah, if I slowed myself down, I could play all that stuff, but I just never knew it was not my thing. So that is one thing that has helped me, I feel, over the years, that I always kind of knew what I was going, So anything that wasn't useful for me playing-wise, I never kind of really learned.
Sure.
And I only went to Berkeley because Steve Vai and John Petrucci went there, I'm like, it worked for them. I'm following the path.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense. But you got to take lessons from Satriani too, I guess, if you want to follow. Yeah, follow. Well, yeah, you've had it awesome. I mean, you got so many stories and done a lot of cool shit. So yeah, we got to. So Rich, I know you got a bunch of questions. I think we both have a bunch of questions. Rich, why don't you fire away?
Well, before we move forward, do any of these songs have bass and drums or any vocals, or is it just you playing guitar?
Oh, okay, cool. Good. That is actually a good question. So. No vocals at all, but there are some songs that are just guitar. If it's a classical guitar, it will be just guitar.
Right.
But the remaining of the songs have bass, guitar, drums, and sometimes there's actually a keyboard on one track. Mm-hmm. So, and the way I did it, which was one point I wanted to make, is that I wanted to, if somebody pops the CD into their CD player, we could press play, and the CD wouldn't be jumping around all over the place, that it's feeling like you're listening to somebody's vinyl collection with just stuff flying out. So you actually could play it and listen to the whole thing, and there's continuity and a flow to it, which I was like, when I finally got it, and I was just like, all right, now it feels like a release, because I didn't want to have this being this mishmash of demos that like some artists release, and I'm just like, I don't even know what to listen to.
Right.
Sure. Actually, along those lines, are you going to do more printings? Is people going to be able to go out and buy it? I mean, go ahead and plug it if people can still get a hold of a copy.
Yeah, so I do still have a few left, and it's very simple. It's just metalmike.net, which is my site, and I only print 100. So I don't think I'm going to print anymore, because then I would kind of go back on my word. All of them are numbered 1 to 100 and signed. And it's the same thing I did. I did a solo record called The Metal Worker, and I did the same thing with this record. It's called Metal Worker Demos plus 6 songs, and I did 100 of these as well. So, instead of making a record and printing 2,000 copies and then sitting on 1,000 of them in my studio for the next 10 years or 5 years, I'll just do 100 special ones, and it seems to work out better, And then for my real next record, then I'll just do like a full-on iTunes and stuff like that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, cool.
To navigate it wisely these days. You know?
All right, go ahead, Jack.
No, you go ahead. You asked the first question. I'll get the next one.
All right. So if this ends up around 92, then between that time and when you joined Halford, that was what, 2000, I want to say, for Resurrection? 99. So in between those years, what were you doing before you joined Halford?
So very interesting. So I would continue write, practice, and I graduated from Berkeley in 94. And in 94, I don't think I even graduated, and I joined this crazy band on Long Island called The Great Cat. You guys probably heard of The Great Cat.
Okay.
Yeah.
So my big thing was like I could read music. So she says, if I send you all these crazy Beethoven, I don't even call it etudes, I call them tortures, then can you read it? And I'm like, I can't read it. And then and I moved to Long Island. I joined that band immediately out of school. But we never played any gigs. That band was constantly falling apart. You know, if we lost the drummer, we found the bass player. It just wasn't together. And I was like, man, I'm living on Long Island. It's expensive. I'm teaching sporadic guitar students. I'm in this band that it's not really working as well as I wanted it to work. And I said, I gotta go back to New Jersey. So I moved back to Bayonne with my parents, which is weird, man, because like you finally leave this small town, which I grew up. You go to Berkeley, right? In Berkeley, I also joined this band called Roxy, ROXXI, that had a video on MTV called Drive It to Your Heart. And I didn't stay in that band either because the band was almost sort of like not really doing anything anymore. So I went to this band that had an MTV video. Then I joined another band on Road Racer. And then I went back to Bayonne. And I was like, damn, this can't be it. You know? I just got out of it and I started to do things that I wanted to do. So eventually, so this had to be about 96 now. I moved out, and in about 98, I started sending stuff out again. I did a self-titled record with a band called Isolation Chamber, called Grind Technical Abstractions. And I used that, and finally I got into Guitar Player, Spotlight Column, Guitar World, Hometown Heroes, Guitar for the Practicing Musician Resume. So I got all three of them in 1 month. And I had this, and the stuff started picking up. And at that time, I sent all my stuff to Halford's management because they were looking for a guitar player. And at that time, Rob was coming out of the 2 project that he did with Trent Reznor. And then I got a call to come out to LA and hang out with the Metal God.
Wow.
And after that, so that was obviously that was a major step, but that's how those years went. And there were a lot of days there when I was wondering. I was just teaching guitar, and I was just wondering. You know, I didn't need to go to Berkeley to teach guitar in a store, so I just wanted to begin to think if this was the correct path that I took. But that's the record, yeah. That's the director right there, Matt.
Yeah. Oh, Matt, the DJ.
He's so metal. He's got 3 horns.
Is he still involved with music and stuff? Is Matt still doing stuff with music or what?
Yeah. So Matt DJs at a radio station by Atlantic City.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I just forget the exact code letters, but yeah, he's got a morning show and everything. It's awesome.
Cool.
Matt, feel free to drop that in the comments. We'll put it up on.
Go ahead, Matt. All right, so go ahead, Mike.
Yeah.
So so go on. Yeah, we're right in the middle of the story, so we want to hear more about your move to LA to hang out with the Metal God.
Well, that's right. So when my phone call called, I made the first record, and I was working on my second. CD called Territory Guitar Kill. I was teaching, and I was just like, I don't know. I had higher hopes for myself. Even though I was kind of doing what I wanted to do, I still haven't achieved what I wanted to really do, which was become a heavy metal guitar player and tour and make records, and mostly touring. There we go. It's not 103.7.
Okay.
And
cool.
When I came out to Los Angeles, it was very interesting because, Rob knew that I could already play guitar from my recordings, but so he was never like, can you play Painkiller or can you play, Grind or whatever. He was more like, can we hang out and can we write songs? So it was very interesting. We were putting a whole band together with Bobby, Pat, and Ray. I don't know if Ray was back there already, but Bobby came out and we wrote basically a lot of the songs for the Resurrection record. We worked with Roy Z. We wrote the Resurrection stuff in 1 week, and then we demoed the whole album in the second week. So it was a 2-week trip. So it was fantastic. So I was still teaching at home, kind of working for the Aquarian weekly. I would do like band advertising sales still. Then I would start writing for the Aquarian. I had a column called Deadline and the Metal Zone, the Grind Zone. And I would start talking about all these European bands. I would write about, In Flames and At the Gates and all those bands coming. Nuclear Blast starting to send all these CDs now to the United States for distro. And I would always fill in Metal God about like, yo, you got to check this out. Or Primal Fear released Jaws of Death. You got to check this out. And so he started calling me Metal Mike because I was like the guy with all the knowledge of the metal. And that's because I was getting bombarded with these CDs from all these labels, Yeah. And then I was still kind of teaching and I was kind of phasing out. So teaching less and less and kind of waiting. And then when I came back from Los Angeles for the first time, it was almost to the dot that 1 year later, the record was out and Halford was doing the tour with Iron Maiden, and we sold the Garden in 2 hours. So the whole year was like, so my life basically just like had this huge change, A dude who continues recording his music to playing Madison Square Garden with Randy Rhoads Flying V's. And back then in 2000, I always keep laughing, but like back then in 2000, there weren't that many Randy Rhoads V's at the Garden. It's it was like people didn't play pointy guitars; they were still afraid to solo, and everybody was playing Les Pauls. So it was interesting time.
Nice.
Yeah. Wow, what a whirlwind, though.
Right?
Yeah, that's fantastic. And well, so I mean, since you brought us there, man, I guess we got to ask, Rich. I know we both have questions about this, but I mean, just talk to us about the writing sessions where it's you and the Metal God and everyone else kind of in a room just working on songs together. What's that experience like with the ideas back and forth?
That's you're actually very close to it. Is that I think Rob is always used to working with 2 guitar players. It's just Rob and 2 guitar players trying to figure out parts. And that was challenging for me because coming back from a guitar player who would sit with his drum machine in the studio and write riffs to now be like, hey, do you have a part for this? And I'll be like, I can't compose like sometimes, and then you have Rob listening to it. It's like, I'm like, man, I can't play a riff because it's got to be as good as Painkiller. Like, how can you? It's a different mental thing, Yeah. But that's how it was. Like the beginning, we still had Sid who played drums in 2. So she was myself, Pat, Metal God, Sid, and Roy was sort of just overseeing and saying, Rob says, I want to make a balls out, A to Z metal record. I don't want to have all these journeys. I don't want to write it. I don't want to write Beyond the Realms of Death all over. We already had the Silent Screams, and that was the one epic song on the record. And then we were putting this stuff together. It was flowing. So it was one of those things when you have the right people in the room, Everybody wanted to be there. Everybody had something to prove. And it was just working. It was just firing good. So we demoed the records. We demoed the Resurrection. We didn't know it was a Resurrection. We didn't even know what the band was called. And but Rob never told me that I'm in the band. I'm just working. I'm just working for 2 weeks. And I'm like, holy shit, I've been here for 2 weeks working with Halford. And I'm like, what the hell am I going to tell people when I go back home? So it was the last day. We demoed the whole Resurrection record. It sounded good, really good. And then Rob is getting into his car to drive back to San Diego, where he lived at the time. I'm following Rob to the car, and I go, so Metal God, you think this we're doing pretty good? and I can't say an English accent, but he goes, yeah, Metal Mike. He's like, I'm not looking any further. He's like, I'm just gonna make sure you're very happy in my band. And he took off. And I came back to winter, back to Jersey. And then we went out again to California to make a proper record. We recorded Resurrection from A to Z. At that time, it started becoming, the album was going to be called Resurrection. It was the return of Metal God to metal. And
Right.
Next thing you know, Bruce Dickinson's in the studio. Roy wrote a song called The One You Love to Hate. Then I'm doing guitar solos. And before you know it, there's Metal God on one side, there's Bruce on the other side, and hovering over my shoulder while I do guitar solos. And I'm like, you guys got to go. I'm not playing guitar solos with you two hanging behind me.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a very no pressure. It was a high pressure but laid back type of thing. Everybody needed to do what they wanted to do. So it's awesome.
Yeah, fantastic, man. That's great stuff.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah.
All right, Rich, I think it's your turn for a question if you got one. Or again, if you guys out there have questions, fire away.
Okay, so how long was your time in Halford now? How many years were you in the band before you went on to what was Pain Museum next, or was Sebastian Bach next? What was the time
Pain Museum.
Pain Museum was next, and then
yeah. So after the Crucible record,
right,
I started to think whether maybe I should do a heavy band. Because for some reason, in the Halford band, I was always introduced as this classical European guitar player, and Pat was this LA heavy guy. And I was just like, but I listened to Carcass, and I listened to Death, and I listened to Disincarnate. There's so much more to me than melodic Euro power metal. So I was like, I'm going to do this band.
Which you're on a great album, by the way. You're on, if I pronounce his name right, Yoakum? Did I say that right?
Oh, Cans, Beyond the Gains?
Okay. What was the name of the album? The Cans album, Beyond the Gates. Yeah.
Yeah, I did a solo record with the vocalist from
Hammerfall. Yeah, great album. 2004. Yeah, that's right before you did Pain Museum.
I know, and it was too bad that that label was just going under. That was released, and I never really got a good release in the States. But the record was so strong.
So good.
Yeah, it was really good. With Stefan, the other guitar player from Hammerfall, who did all the guitars. So in about 2003 and 4, I started thinking about Pain Museum, about this band Pain Museum. And I didn't want to have a singer that sings clean like Rob, because I didn't want to come off as this guy who's trying to reproduce a band that I am already in, because like, why am I, you can't sing better than Rob. So I felt it would be cheesy to do another straight ahead clean vocalist record when I could make records with Rob, and then and then it's just like, what's the sense? And so I said, let me do what the other type of music that I like to do. So I found Tim, that reminded me of like early Exodus, or reminded me of this sort of like thrashy type of vocalist. Now, business-wise, this wasn't the smartest choice, because going back to 2004, I don't know if you guys remember, labels wanted Manowar or they wanted Dimmu Borgir. There was not a lot of room for bands who mashed it all together. I know it sounds crazy right now because it's happening, but back then people were like, well, you know, the band kind of sounds classical, but the vocals are heavy, or they just didn't know what to do. Right. So I had all these different interests for a lot of major, not a major label, but very, very big labels. Some of them are major now. And it just didn't happen, man. I released it on the label from England called Demolition. And they had a good distribution. But at every corner, I had to explain Pain Museum to everybody. It was one of those things where I just had to explain. And I'm not going to sit here and say I was ahead of the time, but I felt like I was like 4 years ahead of what things were kind of beginning to happen, at least on the band from the bands in the United States.
Yeah.
So while I was struggling with Pain Museum, and Rob now returning to Priest at that time, Pain Museum did the ill-fated Metal Gods tour. We opened up all the dates, and then I played as a headliner with Rob the same nights. Rob returns to Priest, and I'm just like, okay. You know, Pain Museum wasn't really a full touring band. And I never wanted to do it with like a combo amp and do like cheesy-ass version of the band. It has to be proper, but there's no money for it because it just didn't work like that. And then Eric from Testament calls me. And he says, we're looking for a guitarist right now. And I joined Testament in 2004. And we did all these.
I remember that.
Yeah, we did all these European festivals. I loved it. The band was Chuck, Eric, Steve DiGiorgio, Paul Bostaff, and myself. So it was just like, it was the crown of metal. It was so good.
Yeah.
We did that tour. At that time, Paul Crook, who Steve DiGiorgio started playing with Sebastian, and Paul Crook, who played with Sebastian, talked to me at a festival overseas called Bang Your Head, which is one of my favorite festivals in Germany. And so Sebastian really wants you to do these upcoming dates. And I was just like, I just wasn't sure. And then I decided to do it. And I'm really glad I did because I had a really kick-ass time jamming with Baz. And so Pain Museum sort of flouting around. I released this EP that you had in your hand, kind of trying to keep the project afloat, The Right to Remain Violent, had an extra track on it. But I'm on tour with Sebastian. So your band, that's the whole thing. It's like you're touring with some other artist, you have no time to promote your own stuff. Right. So you really have, it's like if you're going to do your own stuff, you got to cut that stuff out, playing with other people out, and you just really have to concentrate on what you're doing versus kind of like doing a little bit of everything. But, you know, I still have it, but like I still had the youth, so I'm like, I love playing Sebastian. There's nothing like playing hit songs to thousands of people, you know, like you don't get those opportunities that often. So when you play I Remember You to full arena, opening up for Guns N' Roses, like you don't get to do that every day as a musician, you know.
Sure.
And Baz was he still is, and probably was one of the most rock and roll guys ever. Like the band was, you know, a gang, really. He never knew what was going to happen at Sebastian Bach gig. You know, he wasn't pre-thought. No, we just went out there and kicked ass, and then we went into studio, Sound City, one of the last records made at the famous Sound City Studios in California, and we cut this record called Angel Down.
Yeah, great album.
Yeah, he was cool. We recorded that record almost live because we were on tour so much. We went right in the studio and we just cut this whole record almost live, and then we did some overdubs, and Axel sang on 3 songs. So another one of those things, man. Like you get to appear on the record with Axl Rose,
right?
That's That's a long way from recording demos in Bayonne, but hey.
So we have a question from out in the world. James Donahue. Oh, sorry, Rich, your audio went weird.
2007 when that album came out, Angel Town.
Oh, I got you. Yeah. So James Donahue asks, are you writing on new music for Halford and for your own band?
So that's right. So half of that question is true, is that I'm writing music for my own band right now. So I'm in a pre-production. I'm gonna do new record of all new music, and unfortunately no music for Halford. Because obviously Rob is busy with Priest, and I don't know if we're ever going to do anything as a Halford band. It would be a lot of fun. We kind of missed the window, but the Resurrection had a 20th anniversary in 2020. I was hoping to pull Rob's elbow and have us play a couple gigs, but it didn't happen. So I don't know. I actually might do a little Resurrection display of what I want to do in Jersey. I want to have all the songwriting charts for music, all my guitars that I used, because I keep everything, and I wanted to do a display at a location in somewhere in Jersey and have like a Resurrection memory 20 type of thing. Play a few songs from Resurrection and do a guitar seminar during the day of the tracks from Resurrection. Kind of do like a whole day event. I thought it'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's not Metal Mike Plays Resurrection. It's just such a cool part that I want to do. So anyway, so the music's going to be just for myself. I don't know if you guys seen on the on Facebook, but as everybody's starting to use like profiling amps and doing all these, everybody's going with less backline because of costs. So with my terrible business sense, I decided to go completely opposite, and I've been building up my backline. So now I have a whole row of Marshall stacks in my studio. So I've been looking at these damn stacks, and I'm going, when I play out again with these stacks, I want the new music to have, the depth that these stacks could carry. So there's like a new mission. I'm writing music for my Marshall stacks now. It sounds weird, but it's a whole idea of how I'm going to do it now. So it's interesting, man.
If you can't do the Halford thing in person because of the pandemic and the COVID, would you do it virtually?
No, I want to do it in person.
Okay.
I like virtual stuff that we do, but I do a lot of lessons that are done via Skype. I do a lot of guitar lessons all the time, and I just love seeing people and talking to people in person. So I wanna, maybe for some people, once I do it in Jersey first, and then I know how this whole thing looks like, then I could do it maybe live or like stream it live on Facebook for people who can't be there.
Yeah.
But I think it would be a lot of fun, man. I would love it.
Cool. Hey, I know we don't have a whole lot of time, so I do want to make sure that we touch on your shirt. Tell people about what Metal Hero is all about, what you do.
Oh yeah,
in the real world there.
In the real world, so Metal Heroes is a music academy that I started. One thing that I have as my background, I graduated from a music college, so I know the pillars of traditional education. And I could write, I could speak the musical language, and then I have the experience of being in the trenches, of playing music, traveling, touring, making records, and things like that. And I felt initially, very honestly, started because I wanted something to do when I was not touring. I don't want to sit home and wait for the next tour. And I said, I have to enterprise and come up with some sort of other things that I can do. But then it turned into this whole mission, especially these days where everybody's sort of like, on their phones, on their computers. And there are a lot of kids in each school It's not like in the 80s and 90s when we were in school and there were metal T-shirts all over the place in the hallway. Now you have like one kid in Toledo, Ohio, and you have one kid and two kids in Sayreville because metal Jersey's like super metal. So there's two kids now, and you have one kid, and it's never like Halloween. It's always like Maiden or AC/DC.
Sure.
But so I'm like, now imagine if these guys get together in a little tribe for the weekend, and we just blast through metal all the time. Mm-hmm. You know, when we watch like Flight 666 from Maiden, I would have different guest speakers coming in. I teach them about the business. So that's one thing. Then in the fall, I do something similar, but only for the weekend for adult metal players. Because another thing I realized is their dads who were like 80s rockers and bands now have like regular gigs, but they still love George Lynch. Well, they don't know anybody else who likes George Lynch at their job. So I started doing this damn thing for the weekend for them. And I'm like, well, come over for the weekend. We'll barbecue. You guys can get to hang out, and I'll teach you. We'll work on all this stuff. So that has been moving forward more and more. So the camp, it's in its 7th year, and the Ultimate Metal Guitar Retreat is in its 5th year. It's cool. And then outside of that, I just do lessons all day long during the week, all over the place, from New Zealand to England to California.
Very cool. Rich, I know we got a question from the world out there. So Robert Nerone asks, I know it's all code pending, but any tentative shows planned for later in the year? Mike's band is Kick-Ass Live.
So thank you, Robert. So the plan definitely is to just to finish recording the new music and then go out and play shows. Unfortunately, it's a little bit up in the air of how we're going to be able to do it. You know, I'm still waiting in my heart that we can all pack a club again and do it for real. So I don't know. Now I see clubs are having like chairs and I was just like, I don't know how we're going to blow out the club with a smoke machine and 4 Marshall stacks and everybody's sitting on chairs. So I'm having a hard time with that. But I would love to do it. Yeah, I would love to do it. I'm hoping that by September, October, November, we could go out and do it. And it's mostly going to be East Coast first. So, yeah.
Hopefully, fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Rich, I guess you're up.
Okay. Have you had any offers to join any bands that you turned down that you can talk about?
So yes, I did. And I'm not sure if I want to get into it because then it's going to be very speculative, but there were some other bands that I had a chance to go out and jam. So I don't want to say it was an offer to join the group, but it was a very, very high on the list of coming out and let's play some music and let's do something XXX. So maybe I should have acted on it, but it's very difficult for me because once I finally put my solo band together with Ronnie Jarzombek on drums from Overkill, Mark Lopes from Let Us Play and Rose the Boston vocals, Mike LePont from Symphony X, The Silent Assassin. These guys are so good. It's so hard for me to sort of just like give somebody else a year of my life again. Like, I started having such good shows. We opened up some gigs for Dokken on the East Coast not too long ago. We played Starlit Ballroom and Sayreville. But I never look at bands that are just like sort of like small bands, and I don't want to come off like not correct. But I always look for big bands. So I would definitely consider doing something with some other groups if I felt right. But so that's all I got.
All right. We're going to send you our tape then, Mike. Rich and I are putting something together. No, I'm just kidding.
All right. Yeah. But you know, I love playing music. I love touring. You know, that's sort of like where am I doing? I'm a creative person, and I love being out there. Like for me, this is fully what I do. So it's never like I have to juggle like, oh well, I don't know if I could get off and to go and play with somebody. Like, I'm ready to roll.
Very cool. All right, Rich, if you don't mind, I know we only have a couple of minutes, so I do want to ask about the Metal Hall of Fame. I mean, that's another incredible part of your whole legacy. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes. So 2018, I went out to California, and I guess very officially you could say I was inducted in the Heavy Metal Hall of Fame. It was quite a surreal moment because you had one of my favorite bass players in the world, Billy Sheehan. Like, Billy Sheehan to me is up there with Rudy Sarzo, like the gods who I grew up on. David Lee Roth, and for some reason that's like such a big thing for me. And Rudy too. When I did the Randy Rhoads Remembered shows, I was very nervous playing in front of Rudy Sarzo because he only played with Randy Rhoads and Steve Vai. Like, what can you play to impress Rudy Sarzo? And I know he's not going to say it's not about that, but it was pretty wild. So it was Steve Vai, then it was Lizzie Hale, which kicked ass. She did like the solo performance, super talented, and they had Bill Ward from Black Sabbath. So it was amazing, really, really, really cool. I appreciated it.
Yeah, awesome.
Who knows?
Yeah. All right. I missed that year. I'm sorry I missed that one. I was having a baby born, so I was eager to go that year. But
good reason.
All right. I mean, like I said, I know we're getting low on time, but Rich, why don't you ask a question or take us to the next step?
Okay.
All right. Cool.
What, Jack?
Yeah, go ahead, Rich. You fire away.
Okay. If there's a band that you could join, what would be like your dream band? I mean, you played with Halford, the metal god already. So, what other band would you want to be in, if you could?
I would have to clearly say if we're talking about fantasy, what I wanted to do, I would have to say Judas Priest. That would be my ultimate fantasy band. And let's see what else. I don't know what other bands out there I would love to play in. I do like Dokken though, but it's different. Yeah. So there's few bands out there. I'll have to tell you that playing with Testament was also one of those groups because Testament was one of my favorite bands for a very, very long time. So to play with Testament was almost one of those, all those hours of practice that came in. I was really lucky because even playing Skid Row songs with Sebastian, I really liked the first and second Skid Row records. So that was awesome. And Priest to me are probably the ultimate heavy metal band. Not only because they started, or at least had a very big part in the shaping of metal as we are. I think they started the beginnings of metal. I think they kicked metal in the nuts midway with Painkiller. They almost started the second wave of new wave metal that a lot of the European bands, a lot of these Euro bands still copy Painkiller record. You hear it. So to me, they did all those things that I love about heavy metal. That was the only band, if you remember, that Priest had two levels of Marshall stacks. They had the bottom, remember that? They had the platform. They had another level of Marshall stacks on tier 2. That's never been duplicated. I might do it, but it's going to be an outdoor show for Jersey only. But yeah, so they're my favorite bands, and hey, listen, it's all good, but like playing these songs with Rob, it's incredible,
Yeah.
I mean, arguably one of the greatest vocalists of all time, in metal.
Sure.
So loud that Rob, you could be all plugged in and playing through your cabinets, and Rob could sit on a drum riser and sing acoustically, and you would still hear him with the music.
Wow.
That's how much he projects.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe it. Yeah, all that power coming out of his voice. Yeah, I totally believe it.
Fucking loud. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It really is like a jet engine. Yeah. So.
And then you said hanging out with him, right? What was it like just kind of hanging out when you guys weren't actually working? Like it seems like it was a good time.
Yeah, we got along really, really well. We both have like deep interest in like World War II history. You know, him being from England, and I grew up in Poland in the early 70s, so there was still a lot of the World War II stuff left over, and that always fascinated me. I would collect bayonets and shells. I would go to forests, look for like old German shells stuck in the trees. God only knows what I was doing. I was really into it. So I had a lot of this stuff. So when I moved to the United States, I donated to a museum. My uncle had a museum, and I donated all this stuff to his museum. And Rob and I would talk about that a lot. You know, there's a very human side to Rob on a daily basis. You know, he's one of those guys that doesn't need to remind you that he's the metal god. You just kind of know that, you know, one of those guys who's sort of like, I know he's the metal god. He doesn't need to give business cards out and tell everybody I'm the metal god. Like, we know, meaning like he's got the internal power that you just feel that he's the metal god. And then so it's very approachable, and yeah, we always have a good conversation. So when Priest comes to town, I always go up there and hang with Rob and say hello. You know, it's very, very, very nice to do. And then when Rob puts on the metal gear, then he's the painkiller, the sentinel.
The sentinel, yeah. Awesome.
Okay.
All right, Rich. Well, I mean, we got a couple of minutes. What do you got?
I think he said he was busy, right? You got to go?
Yeah, I mean, we'll go to 5-6 minutes. All good.
Well, give everybody some plugs on what they should be looking for from you. You know, you got the new album, so tell everybody where to find it, tell them about it, and what else you're going to have going on throughout the year. Last plug.
Erika's talking about Connecticut trip. I don't remember any Connecticut trips. Connecticut? I don't think we played Connecticut. So okay. So really quickly, my latest limited 100 pieces CD, the Metal Squire. I called it the Early Battles. A few left at MetalMike.net. Then I'm working on a brand new release, all new music from scratch. Super heavy. It's going to live up to the calling of the Marshall Stacks, and so people should just go to my website. It's MetalMike.net. And then on the teaching side, MetalHeroesAcademy.com. You could find out of my guitar lessons and my summer camp I do for younger players. My ultimate metal guitar retreat I do for the adult players, and those are the two things I'm really busy with, and really, really hope we'll get a chance to go out and do some stuff live. Okay.
Saying you took Matt and I to see Priest. Can you see that?
You took Matt and I to see Priest at the casino, and it took 4 hours to get there. And then I told Erika and Matt to wait in the parking lot. And I came out of Rob's bus with like 6 Coronas and 6 sandwiches. They're like, why did it take you an hour? But then that was a very worthwhile meeting, because I told Rob that I'm going to have a son, and he says, "What are you going to name him?" And I said, "I don't know. I'm thinking about it. We can't come up with a name, yada yada." And Rob goes, this is exact words. He's like, "Name him Steel, bro." I'm like, "Steel, metal, steel," and I said, "Metal God, if that's coming from you," I said, "my son's name is Steel," and that's how it is.
Yeah. You got to listen to the Metal God, right?
There's no such thing. If Metal God names you, damn it, you take the name.
Exactly. It's awesome.
That's a great story. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just plain steel, STEL. No E at the end. It's just as in the sheet of metal.
Okay.
That's awesome.
Yeah, otherwise people think you named after Peter Steele. So yeah, that's just good. You left out the E.
Yeah, I mean Peter Steele was awesome too, but not that kind of steel. No. Which is funniest thing about Type O Negative. You know how Type O Negative always did, like, they had like a tongue in cheek about the band.
Right.
So I went to see Type O Negative at the Limelight one time, and I didn't know anything about him. So they played their set, and I was just like, the guitar is just super fuzzy, and then at the end of the show, Peter Steele comes out like he did. He goes, "Man, we are the worst band ever, but thanks for coming out." And I'm like, these guys fucking suck, man. Like, even the lead singer said they suck. But I was just like, totally didn't get it. And after that, I became like a huge Type O fan, because I just didn't understand it, because I'm so serious about metal. Sometimes I don't get the comedy in it. And I'm not a big fan of comedy associated metal things. Like Steel Panther and stuff, that's not my thing. But like, so I was just, I didn't get it. And then I sort of understood, it's like, okay, they don't take it so seriously. And then when I picked up Bloody Kisses, October Rust, awesome record. So
yeah,
it was hilarious. Nice. I was like, even the lead singer's apologizing. How bad? They're all great guys. It's all good.
Cool.
That's awesome. Well, yeah, I want to say thank you so much, Metal Mike. This has been awesome. And I think thank you everyone out there for watching and your great questions and just making this lively. But yeah, it's awesome stories. I mean, I feel like we're just scratching the surface. I hope you'll come back and talk to us, sure.
Yeah, I would love it. Like, whenever we put a stake in the ground for some sort of a live event, I would love to come back, Yeah.
Yep. We should do a Jersey thing too, because we've had so many Jersey guys on already. We had Mike Sabatini, Jack Frost, Mike LaPond, Alan Tecchio. So we've been covering the ground. So we should, get all you guys maybe on here all at once. That'd be fun.
Yeah, because what I would love to do with that too. See, one thing I always not regret, because it wasn't up to me, but I missed the heavy metal in the 80s in Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
Because I came to the United States in 84. I was like 13 years old. So I was too young to really enjoy and go out to clubs, right? Mm-hmm. But some of these guys were already in there playing Studio One and Mothers and all these places that I've never even been to. Yeah. So I would love to have this sort of Jersey thing when we could talk about how metal was back then, and all this stuff. Because I would, that's like my biggest thing. I always keep asking people, like, how was it? How was it in '88? People are like, well, yeah, it's probably seems better now than it really was when we were living through it, but it's pretty good. It must be better than 21,
Sure.
I was telling people how you build audiences with the bands, and I'm just like, I was listening to an interview with one of my favorite singers, which is Tony Harnell from TNT, one of my favorite bands, and one of my favorite guitarists. And he's saying that back then, before TNT, Tony's band used to play clubs around New York, and they would draw 1,000 people. And he says, because hard rock and heavy metal was the popular music back then, and people went out to clubs for the night. So you could go to a club and have 1,000 people, in '84, because that was the hot thing. And now I see these bands. Let's say 2021. So if you have a headliner playing a club, and the club has each band sell the tickets, and now what happens with especially younger groups is like when the kids go and see the Friends band, when the Friends band is done, they just go home. So they don't stick around. Mm-hmm. So you could have a night in the club where 300 people walk through the so difficult to get new people in. I think it's a lot more difficult than it was back then. But yeah, it's pretty wild how it happens these days.
Yeah, you're so right. A lot has changed, and I have the same kind of feeling you do about the New Jersey scene. Like I was too young to go to L'Amour's in Brooklyn. I always hear about L'Amour's, the legend of L'Amour's. I never set foot in the place. I don't know, Rich, did you ever get to L'Amour's?
Not that early, no. I didn't get to it until the 90s, probably at some point.
Okay, but it was still pretty good, though.
Yeah, in the 90s, yeah. Yep, still. But yeah, I wish I was there in the 80s, but I was still a little young too. I'm the same age as you, Mike.
Okay, all right. So, yeah, all right. So it was 89, so you're still like 17, whatever.
Just getting out of high school, so
yeah.
I was at that point. So yeah, I just started really getting to go where I wanted to go and do what I wanted to do at that point.
Yeah, and the 90s came in and things started. Flannel started coming in. Now there were still metal bands like Skid Row.
Yeah.
But there was flannel started to come in. There was still played like 80s style metal, which I love, obviously. But now they had flannel hanging. South Gang. Remember the band South Gang?
Yeah, they were pretty good.
Thrash with Cash. Well, they looked like 80s metal guys, but they had flannel now, so it's beginning to change. So it wasn't the same. See, at 1990,
remember Trickster had the flannel around their waists.
Oh yeah,
that's what I'm talking about. That's 90s. That should never happen in 88.
Yeah, but they sounded like 80s, obviously, and they were playing, from the late 80s up into the early 90s in the clubs and everything before they, started opening up for everybody in the arenas.
And I tell you what, man, like Steve Brown, right? Our player, he's a friend of mine. He's a really awesome guy. That's another guy that might actually be good for the podcast.
Yeah, for the Jersey one, and we also spoke to Dee Dee and Bobby from Overkill too. So we.
Oh, that's a good one too. See, now those are the guys who lived it.
Yeah,
yeah.
But the damn Trickster had the hit on MTV with them damn flannels, and everybody copied the look. It's true because that was like 1990.
Give It to Me Good and
Give It to Me Good.
Yeah, and because they're all jumping on those four-wheelers with the flannel in the air. Mm-hmm. And everybody copied the damn look. All those bands came out because Trickster had a hit. Well, that's all right.
Great song.
They had a cool record after that called Here, and they had this song called Rocking Horse.
Yes.
It was badass, man.
Yeah, I love that second album. That second album is great.
Yeah, I know, but it was sort of like one of those.
Just the timing it came out.
Yeah, just not didn't really get any push for that.
Yeah,
it was cool. I think it's the time might be good now for heavy metal. We just got to do it with the smoke and lasers and stacks and old school.
This quarantine, pandemic, COVID, I think everybody's going to be dying for something.
It's going out, I'm telling you. Because what happens is everybody keeps selling those Marshalls cheap, and I'm sitting between lessons and I'm freaking buying the damn Marshall cabinets all day long. Because no one wants them now. They're like, just take it away. I don't want to play anymore. And I'm like, I'll buy it. So anyway, but to cap this whole thing, heavy metal is such a huge thing for me, because I love all of it. I love like the way that them smoke machine smells and the people, the guitar rigs. Like, to me, it's such a big thing, and that's so I have this vision of how I want to do it, and like, so it's a serious thing, man. So I always when I do these solo shows, I always try to bring that kind of feeling to the audience. When I was like a kid in high school, and I would go to see Chastain play Escapades. And I would be like mesmerized by what heavy metal was when I discovered. So now being on the other side of it, I want to bring that thing back to the other side. I just remember it, I don't take it for granted. I just don't get up there and just play songs and just go home. It's not like that.
Right.
No.
So yeah, you're flying the flag, man, and keeping it alive. That's awesome. That's it. That's what it's all about.
That's it, man. What else is there? I mean, for us, like think how different our lives would be if it wasn't for this music.
Mm-hmm.
Like you would probably be lost,
Right.
It's something we love. It's our life. It's our hobby. It's, you know, we eat, breathe, and sleep.
Yeah. And you could always, and I always said this for a long time, that you can always talk differently to a metal fan and metal head than everybody else out there. You know, it's like when we talk, it's just this like, you know, we know what we're talking about. Everybody's relaxed. But whenever I talk to somebody else that comes from a different type of environment, whether it's like, you know, finance and construction, it's like 75% there to me. Because people don't have that, you know, people don't have these passions, which is music and metal. And when you have that, I think it opens up a different dynamic to your personality, you know?
Yeah, I agree. You're right. It's a culture. It's a metal culture for sure. Yeah.
So
I mean, I agree. We go to shows and like you end up like hanging out with the guy who's right next to you, or the people are hanging around you. Like, you know, it's even though it gets rough in the pit, there's still like a family vibe.
Your denim jacket, who's on it? You know.
That's right.
That's right. Yeah. It's like there's no violence at metal shows ever. I mean, okay, you know, the pit and everything, you can't call that violent, but unless someone's really drunk and out of control, no one goes there to cause trouble.
Right.
know?
And usually, if you fall down in the pit, somebody picks you up.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You know,
right.
Different.
All right. We got to let you go, right? I know we've kept you a long time, but thank you so much, Mike. Thanks, you out
Mike.
there. Yeah, keep it real. All right.
All right, guys. So we're gonna talk again, Jersey style meeting, and
we'll do a Jersey panel in a few months.
Yeah, cool. Let's do
Excellent.
it.
All right.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much, man.
All right.
All right. Good night, everyone.